Discipline matters more now than during chaos. Chaos forces dependence. Calm tests maturity. Another warning follows. Do not confuse emotional exhaustion with spiritual defeat. You have been fighting longer than you realize. Fatigue does not mean failure. It means transition. Rest is allowed. Retreat is not. There is a difference. Rest restores strength. Retreat surrenders ground. Michael permits rest. He forbids retreat. Strength will return faster than you expect once the pressure fully lifts. And it will lift. Because this phase is nearing completion. The enemy is losing access points. Old doors are sealed. Old legal claims are being revoked. Michael says what once followed you cannot track you anymore. Your spiritual signature has changed. This is why some attacks feel misdirected, weaker, ineffective. Darkness is swinging blindly now. Its accuracy is gone. But blind swings can still hurt if you stand too close. Keep distance. Maintain boundaries. Stay alert. The final revelation of Part 4 is released now. Michael says the reason this process feels intense is because it is final. Temporary battles feel chaotic. Final battles feel heavy. Weight comes with permanence. What ends here will not return. What breaks here will not be rebuilt. What leaves here will not follow you. Heaven does not repeat deliverance unnecessarily. This is not a cycle. This is an exit. And exits require movement. You cannot stay where you were and expect what's next to arrive. Movement does not always look physical. Sometimes movement is mental, emotional, spiritual. Choosing differently. Thinking differently. Responding differently. Michael says watch how you respond now. Your responses reveal your alignment. Fear reacts. Authority responds. You are learning to respond. And that alone tells heaven you are ready. The sword is still raised. The watch is still active. The enforcement is ongoing. Darkness is retreating, not because it wants to, but because it must. And the season ahead will F. Michael says do not look back to confirm what you already survived. Your survival is proof enough. Darkness feeds on attention. Starve it. Focus is power. Where your attention goes, authority follows. Keep your focus aligned with truth, not memory. Another revelation is released now. Some of the fear you felt was never yours. It was transferred. Absorbed from environments, people, conversations, and atmospheres that were never meant to shape you. Sensitivity without boundaries becomes vulnerability. Michael says heaven is teaching you boundaries now. Not walls, but filters. Not isolation, but discernment. You will no longer absorb everything you feel. You will recognize what belongs to you and what does not. This alone will bring relief you have not felt in years. The enemy loses ground when you stop carrying what he planted. Michael says many of your struggles were not battles you needed to win, but weights you needed to drop. Warfare becomes lighter when unnecessary burdens are released. As this phase continues, you may notice something unsettling. Some temptations will return disguised as solutions. Old habits offering comfort. Old connections offering understanding. Old mindsets offering relief. Be careful. Relief is not the same as freedom. Relief numbs pain temporarily. Freedom removes its source. Michael commands you not to settle for relief. Freedom is closer than you think. But freedom requires patience. The enemy hopes you will quit early, satisfied with partial peace. Do not stop short of full deliverance. Michael reveals that some of you are about to experience silence from the enemy. No attacks. No pressure. No fear. This does not mean the battle is over. It means darkness is regrouping. Silence is reconnaissance. Stay disciplined. Do not loosen habits. Do not reduce prayer. Do not return to carelessness. Victory is protected by consistency. Heaven does not withdraw support when things improve. It watches to see if alignment remains. Michael says you're see. The atmosphere has shifted again. What once felt heavy now feels alert. This is the phase where darkness realizes it has lost control, but it has not yet accepted defeat. Archangel Michael says this is the most dangerous moment for the enemy, because desperation replaces strategy. When strategy fails, chaos begins. You may notice sudden emotional waves with no clear cause. Sudden anger. Sudden sadness. Sudden memories that try to pull you backward. This is not weakness. This is resistance breaking apart. Darkness never leaves quietly. It tries to leave damage behind. But Michael says it will not succeed. The ground beneath you is no longer neutral territory. It has been claimed. Every step you take now is being monitored by heaven. Angels are not reacting anymore, they are enforcing. There is a difference. Reaction waits for attack. Enforcement prevents it. Michael reveals that some of you have crossed a line in the spiritual realm without realizing it. A line where fear no longer has legal authority. That is why intimidation tactics increased. That is why the enemy's voice sounds louder but less convincing. Loudness is not power. Authority does not need volume. Michael's presence carries weight, not noise. He says the enemy is attempting to distract you from what is happening behind the scenes. While you focus on emotions, heaven is closing doors. While you process confusion, chains are dissolving. While you question timing, records are being rewritten. What feels slow in the physical realm is moving rapidly in the unseen. Do not rush what heaven is carefully dismantling. Some structures can only be removed layer by layer, or collapse would harm you too. Michael warns you again not to interfere emotionally with what God is ending spiritually. Let it fall. Let it go silent. Let it leave unanswered. Closure is not always a conversation. Sometimes closure is protection. This is where many fail. They return to old places seeking explanation, reopening wounds that were. are ignored. Only threats are attacked. And you have become a threat to darkness. The enemy sensed the shift before you did. That is why the pressure started before the understanding arrived. But now understanding is here. And pressure without confusion loses its power. Michael says fear only works in the dark. Once exposed, it dissolves. This is your exposure moment. This is where lies lose credibility. This is where patterns break. This is where generational weight lifts. Not instantly, not magically, but decisively. A decision has been made in heaven. Your role now is to stay aligned with it. Michael gives a final instruction for this phase. Guard your mouth. Words spoken carelessly reopen doors that were just closed. Do not announce your process. Do not explain your silence. Do not justify your obedience. Darkness listens more than you think. Move quietly. Pray quietly. Obey quietly. Let results speak later. Heaven does not need witnesses to work. Michael says the coming days will reveal who was assigned to walk with you and who was only meant to walk past you. Do not chase anyone. Do not beg understanding. Alignment never needs explanation. Those who belong will recognize the shift. Those who don't will resist it. Let them. This is not rejection, it is redirection. And now, the most important warning of Part 3. Michael says do not mistake calm for completion. Calm is the enemy's last disguise. Stay alert even when things feel better. Not afraid, aware. Protection remains active, but discipline must remain consistent. The battle is turning, but turning does not mean finished. Victory is certain, but the process still requires obedience. Archangel Michael does not withdraw halfway. When he engages, the outcome is settled. Darkness will retreat fully. Confusion will collapse. Fear will lose its influence. But you must continue to choose alignment daily. Not once. Not emotionally. Daily. Because heaven has already taken its stand. The sword is still drawn. The watch feels threatening to darkness because growth cannot be reversed. The enemy knows once you step fully into awareness, you cannot return to ignorance. This is why distractions will intensify. Noise will increase. Temptations will feel stronger. Old habits will suddenly seem attractive again. This is not because you are weak. It is because darkness is negotiating. But Michael does not negotiate. He commands. And he commands you now to stand firm. Not emotionally. Not physically. Spiritually. Stand in silence if needed. Stand in discipline. Stand in truth even when it isolates you. Heaven does not measure strength by noise. It measures strength by obedience. Michael reveals another truth many are not ready to hear. Some prayers were delayed not because God was silent, but because the answer required your transformation first. Certain blessings cannot exist in the version of you that existed before. Certain doors only open when you stop carrying what would sabotage what's on the other side. This is why removal comes before reward. Separation comes before elevation. Michael says do not resist what is leaving your life. What leaves now cannot follow you where you are going. Even if it hurts. Even if it confuses you. Even if it feels unfair. Heaven sees what you cannot. The enemy will try to twist this season into loneliness. Do not accept that lie. Isolation and alignment are not the same. Alignment feels quiet because unnecessary voices have been removed. Michael says angels operate best in quiet spaces. Noise interferes with instruction. This is why you are being pulled away from chaos. Not to punish you, but to prepare you. The next phase of your life requires clarity, not crowd approval. Michael reveals something unsettling now. Some attacks were permitted, not caused by God, but allowed, so you could recognize your authority. Authority that is never tested is never trusted. Heaven trusts you more than you realize. That is why the battle reached this level. Weak targets. What you are feeling now is not confusion. It is awareness. When Archangel Michael draws closer, the mind becomes sharper and the spirit becomes alert. The enemy does not like awareness because awareness removes his advantage. Michael says the most dangerous moment for darkness is when a person finally understands what has been happening to them all along. This is why resistance rises right before clarity arrives. Some of you have noticed it already. Sleep disturbances increased. Thoughts became louder at night. Old memories resurfaced without invitation. Regret tried to speak. Fear tried to replay old failures. This is not coincidence. This is the enemy attempting one last psychological strike before losing ground. Michael says darkness prefers to attack the mind because once the mind collapses, the body follows. But hear this clearly, your mind is no longer unguarded. There is a watch at the gate now. Every thought that enters is being weighed. Every fear that tries to grow is being challenged. You are not losing control, you are regaining it. Michael reveals that some of the attacks you thought were spiritual were actually emotional traps set long ago. Trauma unhealed becomes a door. Guilt unconfessed becomes an invitation. Shame unspoken becomes a chain. The enemy does not need permission to remind you of your past, but he does need permission to control your future. And tonight, that permission is being revoked. Archangel Michael says heaven does not erase history, it redeems it. What was meant to break you will now become evidence of your authority. But understand this process is not gentle. Transformation shakes what it touches. You may feel uncomfortable in places that once felt familiar. You may feel disconnected from routines that once felt safe. That is because your spirit has outgrown environments your body still recognizes. Michael warns you not to force comfort. Comfort is not always protection. Sometimes comfort is the very thing that kept you bound. Grow. Listen carefully. This is not a story. This is not imagination. If this message has reached you at this exact moment, it is because Archangel Michael has allowed it. Nothing happens by accident in the spiritual realm. You have felt it already, the sudden heaviness, the unexplained fear, the silence that feels too loud, the nights where sleep breaks without reason. Archangel Michael says the battle around you has already begun. You may not see it, but the darkness has noticed you. Forces you cannot see have been watching, waiting, studying your weaknesses, because you were never ordinary. You were marked before you were born, not for destruction, but for purpose. That is why you survived what should have killed you, escaped what destroyed others, and still stand after pain that broke people around you. But hear this clearly, the enemy did not forget you. He attacks silently, through fear, through confusion, through isolation, through people you trusted. Archangel Michael says some of you are being disturbed at night. Not dreams. Not imagination. Spiritual interference. Waking suddenly at 3 a.m. Cold air. Heavy chest. Fear without cause. Moments where you feel frozen, unable to move or speak. This is when the enemy tries to enter the mind. But listen, he cannot touch you without permission. Archangel Michael is not a gentle whisper. He is the commander of heaven's army. The angel demons recognize by name. The sword that ended Lucifer's rebellion. When Michael appears, darkness does not argue. It trembles. It flees. Right now, he stands with his sword drawn. A blade not made of metal, but of divine fire. He says, I have been assigned to you. Not because you are weak, but because what is coming requires heavenly force. Michael does not come to comfort. He comes to end wars. He warns you now, if you continue to ignore the signs, the attacks will intensify. This is not fear, this is truth. Disobedience opens doors. Distraction weakens protection. Silence empowers darkness. B. The silence you feel right now is not empty. It is heavy because something has shifted in the spiritual realm. After the warning was released, the atmosphere around you changed. Archangel Michael says the enemy heard what was spoken, and he is unsettled. You must understand this clearly. When heaven speaks openly, hell responds quietly. That is why the pressure increased. That is why distractions multiplied. That is why doubt tried to creep into your mind immediately after you heard the message. Darkness always reacts when it knows it has been exposed. Archangel Michael stands closer now than before. You may not feel warmth. You may not feel comfort. Because his presence is not designed to soothe fear, it is designed to eliminate it at the source. Michael says there are layers to the battle you cannot see. What you experience in the physical world is only the echo of what happens in the unseen. Arguments, delays, sickness, exhaustion, sudden emotional breakdowns, these are not random. They are signals. The enemy never attacks without strategy. He studies patterns. He waits for moments of weakness. He waits for silence instead of prayer, distraction instead of discipline, fear instead of authority. But hear this, the enemy does not have permission to finish what he starts. He can only intimidate. He can only threaten. He can only suggest lies. He cannot claim what does not belong to him. Archangel Michael says your name was spoken in the courts of heaven long before it was whispered in darkness. That is why reinforcements were assigned. That is why protection surrounded you even when you walked blindly. There were moments you should have been lost. Moments where one decision could have ended everything. Moments of weakness. He waits for silence instead of prayer, distraction instead of discipline, fear instead of authority. But hear this, the enemy does not have permission to finish what he starts. He can only intimidate. He can only threaten. He can only suggest lies. He cannot claim what does not belong to him. Archangel Michael says your name was spoken in the courts of heaven long before it was whispered in darkness. That is why reinforcements were assigned. That is why protection surrounded you even when you walked blindly. There were moments you should have been lost. Moments where one decision could have ended everything. Moments where death stood closer than you realized. Yet you are still here. Not lucky. Chosen. But chosen does not mean untouched. Chosen means targeted. Michael reveals that some of you have been fighting battles that did not begin with you. Patterns passed through bloodlines. Fear inherited without explanation. Failures repeating across generations. Sudden resistance whenever progress begins. These are not personality flaws. These are spiritual contracts made long ago without your consent. And tonight, Michael says, those contracts are under review. Heaven has opened records. Angels have been dispatched. The sword you cannot see has already been lifted. But this is the part most people fear. Deliverance is loud in the spiritual realm. When chains break, resistance increases. When curses weaken, attacks spike. Not because darkness is winning, but because it is desperate. Michael warns you not to misinterpret the pressure. The shaking you feel is not destruction, it is exposure. Lies are being pulled into the light. Hidden influences are being revealed. People around you may act strangely. Some may distance themselves. Some may turn hostile without reason. Some may reveal intentions you never expected. Do not panic. This is separation. Darkness cannot walk with light once the light intensifies. Archangel Michael says your obedience now matters more than your emotions. Do not chase explanations. Do not argue with confusion. Do not feed fear with attention. Stand still in authority. Because authority is not loud, it is established. When Michael speaks, he does not repeat himself. He says there are watchers assigned to your steps now. Angels who do not sleep. Angels who do not negotiate. Angels who stand at the doors of your mind and refuse entry to anything that does not belong to God. But understand this as well, protection does not mean absence of fear. It means fear no longer controls the outcome. You may still feel nervous. You may still feel uncertain. You may still feel tired. But the result is no longer in question. The outcome has been decided. Michael reveals a vision, dark figures retreating, not because they were defeated in battle, but because they were overruled by authority.